Alright, so you all went on the bike tour this morning, I guess, but how was it? Good. When you're gonna hear about all the places you can all, but some of the places you went, from my colleague Ashley Gunderson, she is a project engineer here in Spartanburg office for tool design. She's worked on some of the trail projects.
Thank you, Elizabeth. I'm gonna go ahead and warn you all, I am 3 days recovered from a really gnarly cold that's had me out for about 3 weeks. So if my voice starts going, you might just have to scoot up, but I'm gonna do my best to project so you can hear me. Um, thank you all for joining us today. I'm so glad you got to go out and enjoy some of the beautiful trails around here. I have been a resident of the upstate of South Carolina for about 14 years now. I came up here for college and I never left. Greenville, Spartanburg has been my home. I started out at Clemson, then down the road in Easley, which is just the other side of Greenville. I lived in Greenville for the first few years of my married life, and then we moved to Spartanburg about 6 years ago. Um, so this place is my home, and the really, really cool thing has been getting to watch the explosion of trails and multimodal connections across the upstate. Back in 2010, when I came up here, everything was just really new, just starting. It was all a lot of ideas, but not a lot of implementation. And as you saw today, it's grown significantly. It's grown so much that it's starting to be rebuilt, which is just a really cool thing. We've outgrown the system and it's time to start upgrading it. So that's a really cool place to be in. Um, So start off, I want to talk to you a little bit about the Swamp Rabbit Trail, which you got to experience today, so I won't bore you too much with it, but it's been a great resource for connecting this community, schools, parks, local businesses. It's really become a backbone for Greenville County. It starts all the way up in TR. I don't think I made it quite that far today, but it goes up to that beautiful little town just below the mountains. Continues all the way through Greenville County down to Fountain Inn, which is the southern point of the county. And there's plans to eventually extend it into the next county over, which is Lawrence County. The work on this trail system started around 2009. Currently, there's about 28 miles online, and that number is growing every day. So a few of the places you might have seen today, Unity Park, the Swamp Rabbit Grocery. I heard somebody mentioning they might have made a little detour there, as well as some crossings along Blue Ridge. Uh, The Swamp Rabbit Trail got its start back in 1998. Upstate Forever launched a campaign to acquire the rail system as part of the Rails to Trails push. That was a huge thing that happened back around that time across multiple jurisdictions. Probably happened around Atlanta, happened in a couple of communities up here. They were able to get approval back in 1999, and in 2007, they officially took the rails off the system. They were removed. They were officially handed over to Greenville County Rec. And from that point, Greenville Health System, which is now known as Prisma Health, stepped in. They saw the benefits of health for the community by adding these trail systems. And so they were the first investors into the system here in Spartan or here in Greenville. In 2009, they officially opened the first section of the trail. And with it, they held their first 5K. I think that was up in Travelers Rest. Every year that 5K is held now. It's a big event. It's grown year by year. It's a lot of fun. 2019, the city launched a master planning process to look at land use opportunities across the county to try to determine where they could start catering to businesses, catering to development to expand the trail to get it across 85 going towards Malden. A little by the numbers, we've got 28 miles online today. We've got a ton of community partners, including the City of Greenville, Greenville County Rec, Prisma Health, a couple of nonprofits here, Bike Walk Greenville, Live Well Greenville. And then UGOT is another big one, Upstate Greenways and Trails Alliance. UGOT is a really great resource here in the upstate. They work with businesses, nonprofits, cities, municipalities, counties, the whole 9 yards, to advocate for and identify locations for expansions of the trail. So they're a big driver of the system here. In addition, they've got the Palmetto Trail. There's currently an effort to connect trail all the way across the state of South Carolina, starting up here at the highest points up in Pickens County, running all the way down to the coast, down to Charleston and Hilton Head to the south. So it's being developed in pockets and little sections, and eventually, hopefully, it's all going to be connected. So that's in process, and that's a big factor of the work that's needed here. Right now, there's 3 core segments with additional spurs that are already developed. Ridership numbers last year were recorded around 2 million. I don't have the exact number. There's a couple of trail counters out there, but they estimate somewhere around 2 million. Currently, it connects Travelers Rest in Greenville. That's our solid hub that's consistent. There's also a few little spurs in Malden, Simpsonville, Fountain Inn. And there's future connections coming to Taylor's and Greer. Couple destinations, not an exhaustive list. There's tons and tons of stuff to access along the trail. We've got a couple of parks. We've got Falls Park on the Reedy just down here. If you didn't make it there today, I think you did. It's a great place to grab dinner. Cleveland Park, Unity Park, I think y'all took a ride through. Conisee Nature Preserve, huge nature preserve out to the east of the county. Runway Park, great place to take my kids. She loves. As well as Furman University, the cafe, the commons, tons and tons of trailside development has happened in Greenville. It's been a huge driver of the success here. Also have a ton of companies that have come online to do bike rentals. So even if you don't have access, if you want to visit or you just don't have your own bike, there's plenty of opportunities to get out and enjoy the community. Currently, there's about $20 million secured for future expansion work, but that number grows every day. So I want to share a few pieces from the Swamp Rabbit Trail. Some of them you might have seen today, some of them you might not have, that I think are just really great pieces of engineering work that have happened over the last couple of years. The first one is the paperclip, the Cleveland Park connector. This was a joint venture by the city and county to connect the Lawrence Road area back across to the city. It included a paved trail and a very steep terrain section that had to be graded. So they named it the paperclip because of all the switchbacks that it required. There was a ton of rocks that caused issues. There's a big vein of granite that lays not very far below the surface here in Greenville. And it pops up in the most unlikely of places that causes issues for construction for roads and businesses alike. They encountered that on this project, and they also had some gas issues that caused some delays, but ultimately was constructed in 2023 at a $1.9 million price tag. I know it sustained a little bit of damage during Helene, but I think that it's almost done being repaired. So I doubt that part was seen today, but come back and see it another day. A couple other things that are in progress right now are the Lawrence Road Trail Spurs. Lawrence Road is a very, very busy industrial commercial corridor. It's, I believe, 6 lanes wide, bordered by neighborhoods on both sides. And there has been a big push. Lawrence Road connects us from downtown here back towards Malden, into the southern part of the county. There's a need to get users across Lawrence Road. Right now, they're looking at using signalized intersections and trying to build up those intersections to get across. There's been a very extensive study with a lot of public engagement to determine the best route to get through these areas. And these are just the 3 crossings they're working on right now. I believe that's supposed to be wrapped up into this year, early next year, so that it can go to construction. The next thing is the 3 Green Line bridges. A request for bids was sent out to construct the following bridges. Back in 2023, the county and the city both received a number of dollars from the hospitality fund. And from that, they allocated a set amount to construct these grade separated bridges to get trail users across some of our major corridors here in Greenville. The bid was pretty simple. They sent out this list of qualifications that needed to be a certain span length. They needed to have a certain width. And that was about it. They left it up to the bridge designers to to supply the rest and left it pretty open-ended. One of those bridges is done. That's the bridge over Haywood Road that's pictured here. I believe the Lawrence Road is in progress and there's been talks about the Verde. So it's on the horizon. Another one that I think is a great example of how we can interact with our highway system is the Bridgeway Station Bridge that crosses over 385. If you have a chance while you're here, take a little drive on your way out of town tomorrow and check it out. Absolutely beautiful. I think they did a great job for this one. Oftentimes when we try to bring trail users over highways, we end up with these bridges that are not the most attractive, not the most inviting. I think they nailed it with this one. It's truly a showpiece. It's 360 feet long, 15 feet wide, so it is actually built much wider than your typical trail, which is 10 to 12 feet. So they actually went above and beyond with this, and it will continue to carry growth for the community down the road. Few more stats about it. It was built by UIG and designed by UIG. So if you want more information, it's all on their website. They've got great pictures of the plans and some other data for it. Also includes an extension to the future small private trail on this side of the bridge, and it's $5 million, and it was built back in 2023. So that brings us to the next one. The next part that's funded is the Sans Souci connector. About $20 million of that has come from a federal raise grant back in 2024. And that'll add 2 miles to the trail system, as well as establish grade separated crossings over West Blue Ridge Drive and Sulphur Springs Road. Right now, they anticipate delivery end of next year. And why is this one really, really important? And why do I want to talk to you about it today? Sulphur Springs is the site of a cyclist fatality. And frankly, in our world, one fatality is one too many. A young lady, she was 33 years old, she's my age, was crossing legally at an intersection with a light, was hit by a vehicle who left the scene. He was later turned in by his own mother, I believe, faced charges. He's doing jail time and has been fined, and that's honestly not enough. But the response from the community was, we've got to do better, we've got to do more. And so that's where the impetus for the grant came from. They chased after this grant to help fund this crossing to improve this and one other in the community. So over the last 12 years, from the point that the trail really kind of picked up to now, this crossing and the other I'll show you have seen a lot of changes. Initially, they took the old rail corridor, they blew the tracks out, paved over it, and that was about it. Then they said, hey, why don't we use some of that infrastructure? Let's put a signal there. Let's draw some more attention. They added signs. A few years later, they added some paint and a full signal. This was prior to that accident. This was in 2019. That accident happened in 2021. So she was crossing with the signal for the trail. He had a red light that he ran. Still wasn't enough. So we brought a little more paint and visibility. And frankly, it's just still not enough. It's a very heavily traveled corridor. And in spite of all the changes to geometry and other things that have been done to increase visibility, it's just still not enough. In addition to that crossing, there's also one on West Blue Ridge Drive. West Blue Ridge Drive, which is a little bit hard to see from the map, but West Blue Ridge Drive has some geometry issues. The crossing sits in a curve and it's just, there's a lot of speed. It's hard to see. And unfortunately, that one has a lot of near misses on it. I used to work for the DOT before I went into consulting. And when I worked there, we had a coworker who loved to bike to work every day. He had a car mostly just for the sake of leaving town. He never used it here locally. On his lunch, he would go bike all the way to this crossing. He'd bike halfway to Travelers Rest on his lunch and come back. Sometimes that lunch was a little long. But this was one he always complained about. Even as a very confident cyclist, this was one that always gave him pause. And so now there's been similar efforts here to signalize it. They added radar technology to track cyclists and vehicles at the intersection, added a push button. This project was kind of unique in that it was all done by private donation. So $99,000 was given to the Greenville Parks Foundation, and they entered in an agreement with DOT and Greenville County to accomplish this work. So this one wasn't driven by the DOT or any other effort. This was purely local donation. Similarly to the Sulphur Springs crossing, it's seen a lot of iterations. It was the bare minimum at the beginning. We added a little pin, upgraded the signal. Still not enough. That one's on the books to be grade separated as well. This one I think is going to be a little bit more challenging because it runs next to some wetlands. And I think that's going to add a little bit of additional challenge to it. But I look forward to the design and stay tuned. Come back in a year or two and hopefully we will have some updates on it. So the other system I want to talk to you about today is the DAN. The DAN is in Spartanburg County, which is the neighboring county. There's 3 counties across the upstate of South Carolina, Greenville, where we're at today, Pickens, where my start happened, and then Spartanburg. Pickens has the Doodle Trail, Greenville has the Swamp Rabbit, Spartanburg has the DAN. So the DAN was kind of the first of its kind. It's been a transformative project for the region. I like to say Spartanburg is a little bit more gritty, a little less refined. Greenville has beautiful trails, has beautiful city connections. Spartanburg's is a lot more natural. It's a lot more connected within the smaller communities and the pockets. They're both moving in the same direction. They're just getting there 2 different ways. The DAN happened as a collaboration between Spartanburg County Parks, the city, the county, and a group called PAL. PAL is the nonprofit arm of all of the trail development in Spartanburg County. So they have the ability to advocate for and reach across the aisle with developers, with people coming in to do things in the community that the county doesn't have as much power to do. All that has to go through your Chamber of Commerce, and they can kind of bypass that. So they act as kind of a hand to the chamber, so to speak. That system, much like the one here, has been great for connecting tourism, environment, and improving health outcomes for the community. It's also been a great economic driver. Trailside development has boomed in Spartanburg, much like it has here. So here's a few pictures from the DAN, and we'll see a little more in detail. The bottom right picture here is one of our recent trailside developments. This project was built in 2023 and includes on-street bike lanes as well as shared use path. And this apartment community came online after the plans were already drawn. So once it came to the media, they said, hey, we're going to build some trail. And the developer immediately rushed in and said, I want in on this. He bought the property, developed it, and not only did he develop it in such a way that these apartments actually walk straight down onto the trail. So they've got direct access from multiple units across the community. They aren't coming in at one common place. Their front door is not just on the trail. They truly have trail access. Another one is the Fretwell, which is a recent opening. It's coffee shop, venue, place to bring your kids and let them run around in the meadow. You name it, it's a little bit of everything. We also have the pump track, which was built and sponsored by one of the local Subaru dealers, I believe. Great for kids. They love it. They hold a couple events there a year. Spartanburg is the home of a ton of old mills, as is Greenville. And one of those old mills has decided they wanted in on the action, so they have direct connection to the trails. And a lot of our trails sit in low-lying areas in Spartanburg. They take advantage of the existing floodplains, and as such, a lot of it is elevated to keep it from washing out. So by the numbers, Spartanburg has 55 miles total online, and that number is growing by the day, so a few more than Greenville. Total connected miles are 24, and the rest of them are just little individual spurs. They have 16 community partners, including Spartanburg Regional Health System, similarly to the system here in Greenville. Spartanburg also has a hospital system who's very invested in the health outcomes of the community, and they gave the starter money to get the first project started on this system, and they've been a constant partner throughout the development of it. In addition, we've got the Palmetto Trail, a couple neighborhood associations, and a couple of groups Packlet Milliken, which we'll talk about in just a moment. There's 15 individual segments on this system. The QR code will take you to a full map, interactive trail map, if you're interested. There's 4 watersheds that are covered under this system. And ridership numbers on this system were around 630 back in 2023. So I think they're somewhere between 600,000 and 700,000 now. So a little bit less than the ones here in Greenville, but again, growing. Currently, Spartanburg County has $37 million secured for future expansion work. And they earned their bicycle-friendly community designation back in 2007. So they were one of the first in the state to receive that designation. Work on the Dan, similarly to the one in Greenville, started with a bike ped master plan. Theirs went all the way back to 2009. That master plan came up with a ton of opportunities for projects across the county. But frankly, it was a little unwieldy. We love a plan, but sometimes we think too big and we don't know how to chew it up. So a couple years down the line, they decided to hire a new consultant and reevaluate the plan to develop an urban area plan. And this plan brought everything down to about 120 miles. So in order to do that, the consultant printed out this giant room-sized map, invited everybody in, took their shoes off. It included leaders of the local municipalities. It included people from the chamber, people from PAL, you name it, whoever had a vested interest. They came in, they walked around on this life-size scale map of the county, and they drew up lines. And from that, they got it down to 120 miles, and that's what we're chewing on currently, trying to implement. The first segment was constructed back in 2006, similarly to the Swamp Rabbit here. This was a rail to trail conversion. It's about 2 miles that runs just outside of the city of Spartanburg. The city took ownership from the rail back in that time. This really was like a catalyst for the explosion of trails in this area. So this trail was so popular locally. The chamber latched on, the developers latched on, the city and everyone else said, wow, we've got something here. We need to figure out a way to like bake this into the work we're doing. And from that, PAL was born to be that additional set of hands that could be a little bit removed from the government, but still advocating for the same thing. This section is part of both the Dan and the Palmetto Trail system. So it is part of that larger connection. And a few places along the overall network that I want to talk to you about today. The first one being Drayton Trails. I mentioned Packlet Milliken. Packlet Milliken is a very old employer in the area. They've been around for many, many years. They decided they wanted to redevelop the old Drayton Mill and turn it into multi-use space. It has apartments, restaurants. I think it's got a gym, event space. They host a couple of festivals there throughout the year. It's a really, really cool location. But as part of the work, they came to the county and asked for tax credits. The county said, the only way we're going to give you that tax credit is if you find a way to implement paths. We want shared use paths on your site that tie around the larger site and would connect outside into the community. They said, okay. And so the Upper Drayton Trail was born about 1.2 miles, and that was opened in 2016. And then from that effort, the Lower Drayton Trail came later, a couple of years later, and that's about 0.75 miles. The Upper Drayton Trail connects to one of the Spartanburg Regional campuses. Spartanburg Regional has 4 hospital campuses in Spartanburg County and 1 in Union County. So this has a trail that goes all the way up to the hospital, does a loop all the way around the hospital, which is a great resource for people who are there, who are looking to exercise on their break or who just need to get out and get some fresh air. It's a really great resource. Lower Drayton Trail connects the Drayton Mill Marketplace to the current trailhead and back to the original rail trail. Another one I wanted to talk to you about is the Wadsworth Trail. This one was a partnership of 8 local neighborhoods that were developed independent of each other and came together to create a neighborhood association to collect money to create a trail that would connect all of their neighborhoods along with schools and other resources in the area. They came to the county and asked if the county would match their funds, and the county agreed. And from that 3.6 miles of trail, shown here in red, was developed. It's a three-pronged approach, and there's plans to expand it in the future, but that original match was really key to creating this wonderful side path that runs around these neighborhoods, takes you to the Target and all that, which is really great. I think there's a YMCA as well on it. This is owned by the Spartanburg County Parks and maintained by the park system. Something that's a little bit unique in Spartanburg County. Spartanburg County does not own or maintain sidewalks. So the only time you're going to find sidewalks in Spartanburg County is if they are in the DOT right away, or if it's a situation like this. The current design standards don't require it, and most developers are not just going to go building sidewalks unless they're forced to. So this was really kind of a big deal for this part of the community. Next was the Hub City Hopper. This was one of my personal projects when I first came into design when I left the DOT. It's 0.65 miles and it is a combination of on-street cycle track as well as shared use path. It was constructed in late 2022. And it was named one of the top bike lanes by People for Bikes back in 2023. It's a connection to the original Mary Black Rail Trail and it draws from the original trail back into the urban core. So this connects the original trail system to multiple schools, a community college, a park, our main street, the library, among other things. It's the first curb protected bike lanes in the state of South Carolina. So we have a couple of places where we have paint, buffers, armadillos, you name it. But this was the first place that we built out curb to protect bike lanes. And it was all constructed within the public right of way using existing pavement. So there was no take of property to construct this. We had a very overbuilt road and we were fortunate enough to convince the DOT that they didn't need 3 times the capacity that they were seeing, that we could actually use that for better purpose. And so that's what we did here. Another place we run into issues, and I'm sure everybody else does too as they build trails, is dealing with the railroads. The railroads hold the upper hand in most negotiations. They're very difficult to deal with. But we've had a few successes, mostly in going under the railroad. But we're still working towards getting over and doing some other things. The first one was the covered canopy under Norfolk Southern. This was constructed for a price of $750K, and that was a 200-foot section of trail plus the 90-foot cover. The railroad required that the structure had to be capable of carrying any falling debris to protect people crossing under it. That was the big thing. It also needed to secure people from getting to the rail trestle. So it is built to withstand some fallen debris. It also has to be fully deconstructible in an easy and quick manner. So anytime the railroad shows up and says, we're ready to do an inspection next week, that roof is completely dismountable. It all comes apart, lets them do their inspection, and then it can quickly and easily be put back together. So that was one of the key elements of it. Also, any structure has to be able to carry their inspection vehicles. So your typical truck has to be able to traverse the trail. So it's all built up and load bearing. This one in particular connects the River Birch Trail and the Lower Drayton Trail that I talked about earlier. It has been a great success story. And as a result, we're currently under the process of designing a second one that'll cross under a CSX railroad. So now we'll have 2 in the counties. CSX has agreed, and we're waiting for the final permits on that one. Hopefully for it to start being constructed late this year. York Bridge Concepts did the design, and if you're interested in any of the additional construction details, you can check it out on their website. So 2 more trail expansions that are coming to the Dan here in the near future. In 2021, the county received a raise grant of $24 million to fund the next expansion. This is currently under design. Our firm is working along with AECOM on this, and we're set to go to bid later this year. There's also a multi-jurisdictional team that PAL is working with to purchase the inactive Saluda Grade Trail. The Saluda Grade is a pretty steep section of rail that runs from the northern part of Spartanburg County up through Tryon and into North Carolina around Hendersonville. Approximately 31 miles, and this will be a huge catalyst. Of that 31 miles, half of it sits in Spartanburg County. So Spartanburg County is hugely invested in seeing this become the next big piece of infrastructure. And hopefully in the next couple of years, we'll see that happen as well. So I asked the gallery, I talked to PAL, I talked to the city of Greenville. I asked, what were your greatest challenges in doing this kind of work? What are the things that people need to be prepared for as they set on this journey? And the thing that I heard over and over was private property impacts and negotiations are killer. And that's true for most projects. But when you're doing a trail, it takes on a little bit of a different nature. People have to want a trail. Sorry. Thank you. Um, So fortunately, a majority of the land for the trail system, both here in Greenville and in Spartanburg, has been donated by private individuals, by developers who want in on the action. Very, very little money has had to exchange hands in the way of right-of-way acquisition, which is huge. And is ultimately why this system has succeeded, but also why it's a little bit fragmented. Um, Funding is also a big thing. Securing grants and getting matches from corporations and local municipalities is kind of a key driver to the success of these systems. And from an engineering standpoint, the existing built environment creates one of the biggest challenges we have to building safe and equitable infrastructure. We've got overbuilt streets and we have poor non-existent sidewalks in a lot of places. We have property lines that go to the middle of the road. That's a pretty normal thing around here, which makes it even harder to get right of way when it's in the middle of the road as it is. Terrain has also been a bit of a significant issue here. We're right here at the foothills of the mountain. The terrain is rolling. It's flat in a lot of places that are developed, but in the places that are not, we're having to do a little bit of work to get over those grade differences to make things accessible. And a few final thoughts. The communities surrounding these trails have really embraced the work that's being done, and that's why we have what we have here. But more than just supporting the trails, they really take ownership and pride. When Hurricane Helene rolled through a few months ago, it wasn't just the municipalities that showed up. In a lot of cases, it was private individuals who just love these systems so much that showed up to help with the cleanup. They came out with their chainsaws, they came out, drug branches, did whatever they could to help get the trails cleared so that we could work on fixing the parts that were broken. They're seen as an asset, and that's why they're so successful. And the last thing is public-private partnership is such an essential part of making these projects happen, making them work. Without that, it wouldn't get very far. So that's all I have for you. I'd love to hear about how the bike ride went and things, any other questions you have. Yeah. Yes, so that was something I actually talked with the city about. There's um plans to do it in a very targeted manner. So looking at their heaviest sections of use is kind of how they're deciding where to apply it and how to implement it first. So there's a section between here and Unity Park that I know is on the radar for getting it lit. Right now for events, so when they have festivals going on downtown or different things happening locally, they're bringing out mobile units to help light it on a temporary basis on those occasions, but they're looking to get something more permanent a little and a little. But it's kind of an additional thing to figure out as far as getting the utilities drawn out through it and adding the infrastructure. And a lot of times that's what's been done. Yeah, so where possible, the municipalities have not been taking land or exchanging money for property. They've been trying to use it purely on donations or easements where possible. A lot of the trail has been built in utility easements or in floodplains, where possible, because that's usually the easiest land to get a hold of, although it does come with its own set of challenges in that you can't fill in a floodplain, so you have to build up or offset. So those are two approaches that are being used as well. Anything else? Thank you all. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. I'll send Elizabeth my email. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Definitely